Very good to see you again. It's coming up to 20 minutes to 9. Let's get into the newspapers with Dawn and Sean. Dawn, we're talking about hate crime. This is in the Sun, page 6. Police won't report non-crime hate talk.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a draft code is due to go before Parliament today, making sure that police forces spend more time investigating actual serious crimes, like we already discussed earlier, like sexual assault, rape, burglary, etc., etc., rather than what some people call hurty word crime. Yeah. We already have, obviously, laws that legislate against being racist, homophobic, etc., etc. But this is, non-crime hate speech was how they phrased it. And the recent case of the little lad up in, I think it was up in Yorkshire, where he had a criminal report because he scuffed a copy of the Quran. I mean, he was autistic as well, poor little thing. And so this is basically to clamp down or to try and get rid of the amount of time that is wasted on someone saying something you might find offensive. It's not criminal, you might find it offensive, you might not like it, but basically it's your right to have that opinion. It's about defending free speech and, more importantly, freeing up police to investigate proper crimes.
Yeah, and this is Suella Braverman who's pushing this through.
Suella Braverman is pushing this through today. As I said, it's going before Parliament today, and to me, it just makes perfectly sense. I mean, it's when you hear some of the, lots of women have had police knocking on their door to investigate them for putting tweets out about talking about what a woman is, because that's upset somebody in the trans community. So it's, and mind you, if you report a burglary, no one comes around to investigate.
Sensible?
I think so. I think Dawn made the very clear distinction that there are laws that prevent people from being racist and homophobic, and that is important, and that needs to be preserved. And what can happen is when, again, as Dawn is saying, when it's a word that you don't like or something that you don't find particularly palatable, if you then report that and it's taken seriously, it does actually start to diminish or blur the lines between the seriousness of real hate crimes and people just saying things that you kind of don't like.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right, let's turn to the MI5. Sean, this is in the Times, front page of Times 2. They will help firms fend off Chinese and Russian spies. Ties into everything that's being announced by the Prime Minister in terms of defence funding as well.
Yeah, this one really fascinates me. So MI5 will help firms fend off Chinese and Russian spies. This is actually a very real and present danger. Believe it or not, I have a friend, a contact in MI6, previously in MI6. Now, we've discussed it. It is a very real and clear threat. So what MI5 are going to do is offer businesses direct help. Now, this is interesting because MI5 are somewhat coming out of the shadows, and businesses will be able to approach them for help when dealing with Chinese companies buying technology. There has been concerns that have been highlighted previously with companies like Huawei. And it is basically the type of warfare that we can now part of or can be subject to. They'll be able to offer universities and other organisations that can be targeted by espionage assistance as well. And it's very fascinating that they're coming out. Rishi Sunak he's declined to describe China as a threat, but it's obviously been taken seriously.
Could you imagine getting involved in that? You're selling telephones or something and China's a customer and you get embroiled in MI5. Once you're in there, I'm sure you'd never get out.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the things that the guy I know that kind of explained to me as he was kind of going through the sort of ins and outs is that China, a powerhouse on an industrial scale, but right now where they are not necessarily innovators, but they're genius replicators, and if they can get hold of information, of plans, of whatever it may be, then it could be quite perilous.
There's that story the other week that your fridge could be spying on you. Yeah. If you've got a smart fridge, don't even know what that actually is, but if you've got a smart fridge made in China, that could actually be spying on what you're doing. And it was like, this sounds a bit sort of like, like science fiction.
I mean, I don't think they care what you and I are doing, but maybe some of these.
I was going to say, I'm not sure my fridge would give much interesting information, to be perfectly honest.
No,
if they want to spy on me, they're very welcome. There's a lot of broccoli.
Your fridge would be spying on you, the Chinese would be spying on you, and MI5 would be spying on you, being spied on by the Chinese.
I'm boring anyway, so there's nothing interesting they would get.
Leave me out of it. Right, so here we go with the mail. Statues of old white men face being destroyed.
Oh, I love this story. This is Welsh Government guidance that is being issued to local councils and other public bodies who are being advised they should consider discreetly covering monuments with new artwork in case people, again, are offended, and there's links to colonialism and slavery, which we all know is wrong, by the way. Okay, we all get that, but it's like statues, old white men, including like the Duke of Wellington, Admiral Lord Nelson, etc., etc. They may offend the. I mean, I hate the word now. It's used every time, isn't it? But the woke brigade, basically. So, and the Welsh government are saying, well, you know, box them in discreetly so no one's upset.
You know, with that, I think it is important to acknowledge the past, what went on, and how, you know, again, I'll talk about my home city, Glasgow, benefited massively from slavery, and it is so important to look at reparations and to make proper amends. But I think with things like this, again, it starts to diminish the importance or the seriousness or the gravitas that proper reparations can have, because what happens is people look at it and say, nah, do you know what, nonsense, and they then won't have the further conversation. You're diminishing your own argument.
I think there's also an argument to say that what you can also be doing is saying that there was no one of any relevance to your life in the 1960s or 70s or 80s. They all have to be from 1732 or whatever. I find that with football that you get stands that are named after someone who was an amazing player or whatever in the 1930s or 40s. But what relevance has that got to people today?
Well, I mean, I think with that you could learn from those players. You could, you know, study.
Yeah, but then it's sort of stopping you naming a whole stand after a new player, you know?
Is there a Gary Lineker stand yet? I mean, we should have one, shouldn't we?
I don't think there is at Leicester, at Everton, or at Spurs. I don't.
No, not yet.
BBC probably wet themselves that it was breaking impartiality rules. Can we talk about prepayment meters? This is like the story of the winter, really, isn't it? It's just the horror of them. And Sean, this is in the Times. They're to be brought in line now with direct debits, and quite right too.
Absolutely. People who have prepayment meters will no longer be charged more for the gas and electricity than people who have a direct debit. When I saw this story, I felt quite strongly about it. It wasn't so long ago as a younger guy with 2 pennies to rub together, and that was an issue for me. And I remember thinking, why should I have to pay more? Why should that maintenance be passed on to me? I think it is great that they're doing this. So it'll save families a fair wee bit of money each year. I think it is. I mean, it's quite scandalous, really, that one, that it's taken until now, and two, that it was even a thing. And it kind of highlights that it's always, or very often, the poorer in society that are penalised for what is a couple of pounds. To you or I, in a fortunate position. It's not much now, but to somebody, again, I remember being 19 and walking through Asda and doing calculations in my head and thinking, can I afford to get this bottle of juice? And that is the reality for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think full credit to the Times and the newspaper for all people have a thing or two to say about journalists and the newspapers. It is thanks to the light that they've shone on relentlessly on this issue that the government sat up and took notice. I think the was leading on it, then the Times did an undercover sting, which really exposed
the forced installation of meters as well.
Absolutely horrifying. And finally, the government have woken up to this, and the regulator as well. So shout out to journalism there.
Just very quiet in the gallery. Have we got time for one more? Or do you want us to move on? Okay. Skiing trips. Okay, tell us what Jeremy Clarkson.
I'll make it short and sweet and funny for you, Eamonn. This is page 3 of the Daily Star, and Jeremy Clarkson, very tongue-in-cheek, has said that cigarette-style health warnings should be put on ski trips and brochures advertising ski trips because they are destroying the planet. Now, Jeremy Clarkson is obviously a smoker, and looking at this picture, he also goes skiing. It's also very tongue-in-cheek, but you know, all the posh folk what are going skiing are destroying the planet, is what Jez is saying.
Is he?
Yeah. Nothing to do with all the fast cars he's been driving.
I'm just reading the story.
I love Jeremy. I actually, guys, look, I don't want to start a rumour here, but I actually had to check he wasn't dead yesterday.
Why?
Because I was reading the Sunday Times and there was a letter saying about Jeremy dying, and I thought, have I missed something? What the heck? And I had to Google it, and apparently he writes a lot about his fear of death in his column and repeatedly. But I actually, for a moment, thought, have I missed something this weekend?
See, for a split second there, I thought you were going to say he's had a party on the Saturday night and you woke up and he was passed out or something.
Oh, right, no, it was purely that someone was writing a letter about all of his sort of morbid fascination with death.
Dawn Neeson and Sean MacDonald, otherwise known as the duet Dawn and Sean.
I was going to go Sean and Dawn.
Thank
Dawn
you.
and Sean.
Thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you.